There's one mentality that I've learned in life that has been more helpful to me than any other. And so I thought I'd tell you about it. For anyone who's new to the channel, my name is Seth. I'm a full-time fantasy author, and I like to make YouTube videos. I run my life on a lot of mental models. You might also call them principles. I don't often think about them. In fact, most of them run all the time under the surface, like they do for most people. But there's one particular mental model, or again, principle, that I have found to be more helpful than any other. Let me give you a real quick breakdown of my life, or at least my early life, and let me know in the comments if you can spot the principle that I'm talking about. I was born in a large family. I'm number 7 of 10 kids, and when I was less than a year old, my family moved to Africa. Then a few years later, we moved back to America. And then after that, we went back to Africa. But this time we moved from southern Ghana to northern Ghana because of some complications with malaria. And then there was a war and we had to move back to southern Ghana. And then we moved back to northern Ghana. And then after a little while, we moved back to the US. Now we were in the US for a little bit and then we moved back to Ghana. Now, after being there for a little while, we moved to the US, but we moved to the West Coast instead of the East Coast. And then we moved to Texas, and then we moved back to Ghana. And then I went to boarding school in a completely different country. And then that didn't work out because of a coup, so I moved back to Ghana and then back to the US. By this point, I was just about to go into 10th grade, and I had been in 13 different schools. And life had taught me, firsthand, one of the immutable laws of nature. Have you guessed it? Again, let me know in the comments if you have. The law is simple. Everything, except for the absolute, changes. Everything. Look around you at any point, and you can see this to be true. Now, I believe there are certain principles and there are certain truths that never change. But everything else in life is mutable. It changes all of the time. And every second that passes is, in some ways, a brand new world. Now, a lot of people have the opposite perspective. They say, nothing ever seems to change. Everything just seems to stay the same. But I don't think that's true, and I don't think that if they examined their lives, I don't think they would actually think it's true either. Our relationships are changing, the way we look is changing, what we do is changing, the weather is changing, everything is changing. And often there is cost to that change, but it also contains one of the most powerful life hacks that you will ever find. This principle of everything except for the absolute changes contains just an unbelievable number of advantages. Let me explain. If everything changes, then every moment is an opportunity to do better. The river of time only runs one way. And so everything that has happened is going to drift further and further and further away. And so your failure is going to get further and further and further away from you. So every moment is an opportunity to do better. Every moment is an opportunity for positive change. Just because everything changes doesn't mean that everything is going to change for the negative. In fact, we can leverage this because we know things are going to change to make positive change over and over and over and over again until we're nowhere near where we originally started. Similarly, because everything changes, you can always make a new choice. I can't tell you the number of times in my life where I have felt as if I was locked into the same bad choices that I had been making over and over and over again. But that's not true. Everything changes. And so I can change too. I can change for the better. I can make better choices. If the future is going to be different than the past, then I can be different too. There's nothing forcing me to remain the same as I was. In fact, everything about life is encouraging me to change, and hopefully for the better. And even if it's not, even if everything in life is encouraging me to change for the worse, guess what? I'm the one who gets to decide. I get to decide how I want to change. On top of that, if everything changes, then any suffering that I'm feeling right now is temporary. It has to be, because everything changes. No matter how much my suffering feels like it's going to last forever, and believe me, I have been in places where it felt never ending. That's not reality. The reality is that it's going to change. Suffering, like most of life, is temporary, and it is going to fade away. There's no pain that lasts forever. There is no hurt that is unending. And because we know that change is coming, because we know that things are going to change, we can then focus on making them improve. So write your book, do your work, enjoy the beautiful day when it comes. I've only barely begun to scratch the surface of the ramifications of this idea that change is all around us, it is ever present, and it is constantly happening. But rather than listen to me prattle on for hours about it, I think you would be better off if you took some time, maybe sit down with a journal or maybe even go for a walk, and think about this idea. What does it mean for my life if everything changes? Nothing but good will come from understanding this truth and aligning yourself with it. Allow yourself to change, because you're going to anyways. But just remember, you can push that change in a positive direction.